Now, after we started investigating that former teacher of the year, we really wanted to know what happened inside that school. We spoke with Abdul Wright's former student who accused him of sexually abusing her for nearly a year. But then we started to hear from people who worked alongside Wright, including teachers who had some serious allegations against him.
So it happened in my own classroom.
This is Teacher A. We agreed to conceal her identity because she says Abdul Wright sexually assaulted her back in 2012. And these police records and school records obtained by the Fox 9 investigators reveal some pretty disturbing details.
At one point, he picked me up physically and pushed me against a desk. I was leaning my head away from him, trying to be as far away from him as I could because I could feel his breath on my neck. He lifted my shirt, he put his mouth on me. I told him he needed to stop. He put my hand on his crotch, and I told him no, repeatedly.
A few days later, she recorded a 40-minute conversation on her phone with Wright inside the school.
I am afraid to be in a room alone with you. Do you understand that?
He seemed to know that I was going to be reporting it. And once I did, that's when he seemed to get a bit more aggressive in his tone with me of acting as though this was something that I had wanted.
When you told me to stop right there is when I should have stopped, when we were getting up from the thing. And so, starting off as a little bit of kissing on the neck, and then after that,
I told you to stop.
Yes, so when I
told you to stop.
Okay, and then after that, and then you said stop. You said stop 3 times. And then you said stop. You said stop.
Do you know what that's like?
And then, okay. And
Do you
then
know?
that is why. And that
I
is
was
why when I sat
terrified.
Okay, so
When I reached out to Wright's attorney, he emailed me a statement that said the allegations against Mr. Wright are absolutely unfounded, and they look forward to vigorously contesting them in court. Now, in this case, Wright wasn't charged after he told police he was getting, quote, mixed messages from his coworker and had never done anything like this before.
It was traumatizing.
But that's when we heard from yet another teacher. She stepped forward with similar allegations from a year earlier.
I said no and portrayed no with my body, and he chose not to pay attention to those signals.
Wright did not admit to that, but he did admit to police that he had consensual sex with that teacher pretty often, every other week, in fact, inside the school.
We had sex in the school.
Uh-huh.
And see,
How many times do you think you had sex with her?
easily over 25 times. Easily. Easily over 25, 30 times.
These HR records show Best Academy knew all about these accusations, and when Wright resigned in October, the school said that he would not be reinstated as an employee of Best Academy for the remainder of the school year.
Which turned out to not be true because less than a month after the incident happened, he was then back on staff. It was at that point that there was a garbage in the room, and I immediately was on my knees throwing up because I was terrified of being in the same building as this person.
That she was forced to move her classroom, and that she was not allowed to go to meetings where he was present, where it absolutely, at the very least, should have been the other way around.
They told me that I had the option of having a janitor or another staff member escort me to and from my car every single day so that I could feel safe coming to work. And again, it was this acknowledgement of, you don't feel safe, and this isn't a safe person for you to be around, but we're still going to bring him back to the school.
Wright continued to work at Best Academy, and in 2016, he was named Minnesota's Teacher of the Year, just months before police say he started grooming his 14-year-old student.
I was in 8th grade, and I was expecting to be protected.
I think they failed tremendously.
That student's father told me they actually alerted the Best Academy's founder, Eric Mahmoud, about all of this back in 2017.
We could have stopped it. We could have stopped it back then.
But Wright, again, was allowed to continue teaching there for years.
They didn't investigate, and it just didn't seem like they cared enough.
Mr. Wright, were you ever disciplined?
We recently caught up with him at a court hearing to ask him about his employment history at Best Academy.
How quickly did you return to school?
As you can tell, Wright didn't have much to say. and neither did Best Academy. But the teachers who made those allegations against Wright, well, they had a lot to say.
Your job as leadership is to educate children and to love them and to keep them safe, and they failed.
More than a decade after those first reports were made to Best Academy, the school's CEO, Eric Mahmoud, was removed by the school board earlier this month. But the school he founded continues to face lawsuits and questions of accountability over how it handled those accusations. For the Fox 9 Investigators, I'm Nathan O'Neal.